When I lifted the blanket in the back seat and saw the girl leaning her head on my son's shoulder, something inside me went very, very still. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was that strange, hollow quiet a mother feels right before her heart breaks. I had crawled into the back of his car barely 15 minutes earlier, biting back a laugh like some mischievous child. I just wanted to surprise him. My Ahmed had been working long hours at the new office, and we'd barely seen each other properly in weeks. So when he called and told me he'd swing by to pick me up for dinner, I thought, why not? Let me wait in the car, hide under the old picnic blanket, and jump out to tease him. A silly, harmless idea. But as the passenger door opened and he climbed inside, someone else climbed in right after him. A soft giggle. A rustle of fabric. A smell, sweet, floral, unfamiliar. And then her voice. "It feels strange meeting like this," she whispered. My fingers went cold. I froze beneath the blanket, barely breathing. My son exhaled a nervous laugh. "I know. But I just needed to see you tonight." That's when I lifted the corner of the blanket just an inch, just enough to see. Just enough to witness the moment a mother never imagines she'll face. The girl leaning against him wasn't his girlfriend. She wasn't his fiancée. She wasn't anyone I recognized at all. But the way he looked at her. The way his thumb brushed her hand. The way she smiled up at him like she already knew his secrets. It was the look a man gives someone he shouldn't. And I knew immediately, my son was hiding something. Before all this, before that night in his car, life felt simple in that quiet, ordinary way that makes you think nothing could ever go wrong. Our home was small, but warm. The kitchen smelled of cumin and onions most evenings, and the kettle on the stove had this habit of whistling even when no one touched it, like it loved announcing itself. Ahmed had always been a good boy. Quiet, thoughtful. The type who remembered if you liked your tea light or strong, who checked the locks twice before bed, who kissed my forehead before leaving the house even at 26. He still lived with me while saving for his own place. I cherished those days more than I admitted. Sometimes I would hear him typing in his room late at night, working on some report or replying to emails, and a small part of me felt proud, like I'd done something right after years of raising him alone. His girlfriend, Miriam, had been part of our life for 3 years. Sweet, respectful, soft-spoken. She worked as a schoolteacher and always brought homemade biscuits when she visited. I had genuinely thought she would become my daughter-in-law someday. There had never been any signs, no late-night calls, no odd behavior, no hidden messages. Nothing to suggest my son was even capable of being unfaithful. So when the girl in the car leaned closer to him, so close their shoulders touched, and whispered, "Do you think your mother suspects anything?" I felt the world tip slightly beneath me. My son paused. His hand tightened around the steering wheel. "No," he said quietly. "She thinks I'm the same person I've always been." The girl giggled. "Poor thing. Poor thing." Her words hit me like a slap. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just lay there, heart pounding in that cramped silence, realizing that the boy I had raised, the boy I thought I knew completely, was living a life I knew nothing about. And that was the moment. The moment everything began to unravel. I didn't reveal myself that night. Maybe that makes me a coward. Maybe it makes me a mother who wasn't ready to see the truth. But something told me, stay still. Listen. Don't interrupt what's unfolding. My son started the car, his voice low. "We can't stay long. I told my mother I'd take her to dinner tonight." The girl hummed, almost disappointed. "You spend too much time with her." A tiny, sharp pain pricked inside my chest. Too much time? Since when was loving your mother a flaw? Ahmed sighed. She raised me alone. I owe her everything. The girl's reply came with a softness that felt practiced, deliberate. And you've always been a good son. But you have your own life now, Ahmed. Your own happiness to think about. The car began to move. Streetlights flickered past the window, washing the inside of the car in yellow flashes that made everything feel surreal. Did you talk to her yet? The girl asked. About what? About us, she whispered. A heavy silence. Even from the back seat, I felt the weight of it. Ahmed's fingers tapped the steering wheel. Not yet. Why not? I need to find the right moment, he said. You know how she worries. The girl scoffed under her breath. She'll be fine. Mothers always adjust. I pressed a hand over my mouth, not sure if I was trying to keep quiet or keep myself from breaking. Adjust. As if my life were furniture someone could rearrange without asking. When they finally parked near the takeaway shop, Ahmed told her, wait here. I'll be quick. He stepped out, closing the door gently behind him. The car settled into a hush. The girl sighed, leaning her head on the window. For the first time, I saw her face clearly, a young woman, maybe early 20s. Attractive, but with an entitled confidence in the way she held herself. Her phone buzzed, and she answered immediately. Yeah, I'm with him right now, she whispered, playing with her hair. No, of course he didn't tell her yet. Don't worry. Once we're official, everything will fall into place. She paused, lips curving into a slow smile. Yes. His mother might be a little protective. But I'll handle her. Handle me. I felt something inside me tighten, an instinct sharpening itself like a blade. When Ahmed finally returned with takeaway bags, the girl straightened, wiping that smug expression off her face and replacing it with something sweeter, something rehearsed. He got in, placed the food in the back seat, inches from where I lay hidden. Let's go, he murmured. As the car rolled forward again, something in the tone of his voice shifted. There was exhaustion there. Conflict. A kind of heaviness I hadn't noticed before. The girl must have sensed it too. What's wrong? Ahmed was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made my breath hitch. I'm scared, Sana. So that was her name. He continued, his voice cracking just a little. I'm scared she'll see me differently. That I'll disappoint her. I closed my eyes. Not anger. Not betrayal. Just heartbreak, for both of us. Because beneath the lies, beneath the secrecy, my son was still that same boy, still trying to protect me even while hurting me. We reached home. Ahmed walked her out of the car, and they talked for a few minutes. Just silhouettes under the streetlight. Then she left, and he came back for me, not knowing I had been with him the entire time. When he opened the back door to place the bags inside, I made sure the blanket had already slipped off me. Ahmed, I said softly. He froze. His eyes widened. His breath stopped. The world around us seemed to fall silent. Amy, he whispered. What are you doing here? My answer didn't come easily. I looked him straight in the eyes. I should be asking you the same question, my son. For a long moment, Ahmed didn't move. He just stood there with his hand frozen on the door, his face pale under the porch light. The bags of food trembled slightly in his grip. Amy, he breathed, voice thin. How long were you in the car? I stepped out slowly, brushing off the blanket from my shoulders. My knees were stiff, my heart beating so loudly I thought he could hear it. Long enough, I said quietly. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. This isn't what it looked like. Ahmed, I cut in gently. Sit with me. I didn't want to confront him on the driveway, not under the open sky where every word felt exposed. So I walked toward the front steps, and he followed, each footstep slow and reluctant, as if he were walking toward a truth he wasn't ready to face. We sat side by side on the steps. The air smelled faintly of dust and the neighbor's jasmine plant. A stray cat wandered across the street, meowing softly. It all felt painfully ordinary, considering what lay between us. He ran a nervous hand through his hair. I didn't want you to find out like this, he whispered. My fingers tightened in my lap. Then how did you plan for me to find out? He flinched. Another long silence. He stared at his hands like they could offer him answers. I waited. A mother learns patience the same way she learns pain, slowly, through years of loving someone more than herself. Finally he exhaled. Her name is Sana. I know, I replied. His head jerked up, but he didn't seem surprised anymore, just defeated. We've been seeing each other for about a year. A year. My heart felt like someone had placed it in cold water. And Miriam? I asked softly. Does she know? His eyes closed, a pained expression tightening his features. No. And this girl? Does she know about Miriam? Yes, he said reluctantly. But she doesn't want to wait forever. I looked away, the streetlight blurring for a moment. And what do you want, Ahmed? He hesitated. I don't know. Those 3 words cut me deeper than any confession. Because doubt is what destroys relationships faster than anything else. You're hiding from both of them, I said gently. And now you're hiding from me. He rubbed his palms over his face. Amy, I never meant to hurt anyone. I kept thinking I would end things the right way, that I'd make a clean decision, but you didn't, I finished quietly. He nodded, shame settling over him like a heavy coat. Tell me the truth, I asked. Do you love her? He swallowed hard. I think so. And Miriam? He hesitated. I care about her. A lot. She's been nothing but good to me. But lately it feels like we're on different paths. And Sana came into my life at the wrong time, but I couldn't let go. I exhaled slowly, my breath unsteady. Ahmed, I whispered, why didn't you tell me? He stared at me with eyes that looked younger than his 26 years. Because I was afraid you'd be disappointed in the man I've become. A soft ache settled in my chest. My disappointment, I said gently, comes not from your mistakes, but from your silence. His eyes watered. Not tears, just a shimmer of vulnerability he tried to hide. I'm sorry, Amy. I reached out and held his hand. Sorry is a start. But you have decisions to make. Ones that will affect 3 lives, yours, hers, and Miriam's. He nodded, but the fear didn't leave his face. Come inside, I said softly. We'll talk more after we eat. He stood, lifting the bags with a trembling hand. But as we walked inside together, a part of me knew. This night was only the beginning. The kitchen smelled of garlic and coriander, left over from lunch, mixed with the faint aroma of chai I had brewed hours ago. The familiar scents should have comforted me, but tonight they felt almost cruel, reminding me of the normal life I was about to shatter, or be shattered by. Ahmed set the bags down on the counter silently, the weight of the evening pressing against his shoulders. He avoided my gaze, instead staring at the packets of food as if they held answers he'd been too afraid to ask. I poured us each a cup of tea, careful to let the steam curl between us like a fragile bridge. I handed him his cup. Drink. It helps with the nerves. He took it without a word. His hands shook slightly as he lifted it to his lips. You have to understand, Amy, he began softly, I never wanted to hurt anyone. Not Miriam, not you, not Sana. I thought I could manage everything, that no one would get hurt. I nodded slowly. Ahmed, life doesn't work that way. Secrets always come out. And when they do, the hurt is multiplied. He looked up then, a flicker of desperation in his eyes. But Amy, she makes me feel alive. With Miriam, it's safe, predictable. But with Sana, it's like I'm seeing the world in color for the first time. I felt a twist of something raw inside me, pain, anger, disbelief, but I swallowed it. My role was not to scream or rage, it was to guide, to illuminate the path he seemed too afraid to face. Ahmed, I said slowly, my voice calm but firm, you are 26. You have a right to love, to make mistakes. But you also have a responsibility. Miriam trusts you. Sana, she might be new and exciting, but you've built a life on lies if you choose her without honesty. You can't escape the consequences by hiding. He looked down at the counter, his fingers tapping nervously. I don't know what to do, Amy. I feel trapped. I reached out and touched his shoulder. Trapped is a choice. You can face the truth, no matter how painful. Or you can continue to hide. But hiding will only make the fall harder. Ahmed's eyes glistened. He swallowed hard. I need time. You've had time, I replied softly. Time to think about who you are, who you want to be. You've also had time to hurt others. Now it's time to act. He flinched slightly, the weight of my words settling over him. The air in the kitchen felt heavier, thick with unsaid confessions. I could hear the distant hum of traffic outside, the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog. Simple sounds, ordinary and grounding, but they contrasted sharply with the storm inside me. Amy, he said, his voice almost breaking, I don't want to lose you. I smiled faintly, a small curve of warmth. You won't lose me, Ahmed. But you could lose yourself if you continue on this path. Learn to face the truth. That's all I ask. He nodded, tears threatening to spill but holding back. For the first time that evening, he seemed small, human, vulnerable, not the untouchable boy I had always thought I knew, not the confident man he was trying to appear to Sana, but a son who had made mistakes and was finally seeing them clearly. We ate quietly, the clink of cutlery the only sound between us. I didn't rush him to speak, didn't demand explanations. I just let him sit with the weight of his choices, knowing that the next steps he took would determine not only his future but the futures of those around him. After we finished, Ahmed cleared the dishes silently. I watched him, noting the tension in his back, the slight tremor in his hands. My heart ached for him, and for Miriam, and for the girl he had brought into this web of secrecy. And in that quiet moment, I realized something painfully clear. This night was not just about discovery, it was the beginning of a reckoning. Because once the truth comes out, there is no hiding from it. The next morning, the house felt unusually still. Even the kettle seemed hesitant to whistle. I sat at the kitchen table, staring into my teacup, letting the warmth seep into my fingers. Ahmed hadn't come down yet, and I could hear him moving quietly upstairs. Avoiding me, probably, though I didn't blame him. Avoidance is easier than confrontation when guilt sits heavy on your chest. But I couldn't just sit and let this fester. I needed clarity. I needed action. And more than anything, I needed to protect the ones who had trusted him. I picked up my phone and dialed Miriam's number. My heart raced with every ring. I wasn't proud of what I was about to do, but it felt necessary. She deserved to know. Hello, her voice was warm, unaware. Miriam, I said softly, trying to keep my voice calm. It's me. Amy. There was a pause. Oh, hi, Mrs. Ahmed. Is everything okay? I inhaled slowly. No, not really. I think you need to know something about Ahmed. Something important. Her voice shifted, from casual to alert. What is it? I told her everything I had witnessed last night. The car. Sana. The whispered conversations. Every small detail. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't embellish. I let the facts speak for themselves. There was silence on the other end. Then she whispered, almost shakily, I can't believe this. I know, I said softly. But you deserve the truth. You deserve the chance to make your own decisions before it's too late. She thanked me quietly, and I hung up, feeling a strange mixture of relief and sorrow. Relief because the secret was no longer mine alone. sorrow because I knew how much this would hurt her. Ahmed came down just as I was clearing the breakfast dishes. His eyes were red, guilt written all over his face. "Amy," he said, voice trembling. "Did you?" "I spoke to Miriam," I interrupted gently, not looking at him. "She knows everything now." His hand went to his face. "Amy. I can explain." "Ahmed," I said, turning to him, my voice calm but firm, "there is no explaining until you make a choice. And that choice must be honest, with both Miriam and Sanaa. No more hiding. No more whispers behind doors. You need to face the consequences of your actions." He nodded, eyes wide and uncertain. I don't know if I can." "You can," I said softly. "Because hiding never solves anything. Facing the truth does. It will be painful, yes, but it's the only way to preserve any chance of integrity, of self-respect." He exhaled slowly, as if the words themselves were heavy. "Anne. Sanaa? You'll have to tell her the truth too," I replied. "You owe it to her as well. The longer you delay, the worse it will get." He nodded again, silent, staring at the floor. I didn't press further. I knew the moment for decisions would come soon enough. Later that afternoon, Ahmed left the house. I watched him go, carrying a small bag, his face set but tense. I didn't follow. I let him walk into the storm he had created. By evening, news traveled faster than I anticipated. Miriam had confronted Ahmed at his office, an emotional scene that drew colleagues and friends into whispers. Sanaa, meanwhile, had learned he had told someone else before her, and her hurt and anger were palpable even from a distance. The public unraveling of his secret was painful to witness, but there was a strange clarity in it. The lies could no longer linger in shadows. The choices had been forced into daylight. I sat by the window that night, listening to the soft hum of the city, the distant horns, the wind brushing against the leaves. I realized that the most important thing I had done wasn't to scold or punish Ahmed, it was to allow the truth to exist. Truth is never gentle. But it is always necessary. The following days were hard. The weight of what had been revealed seemed to hang over the neighborhood like a heavy fog. People whispered, colleagues gossiped, and the small circle of friends who had always admired Ahmed's responsible nature now looked at him with curiosity and quiet judgment. I tried to maintain normalcy at home, but the tension was palpable. Every time the door opened, I expected someone, Miriam, Sanaa, or Ahmed himself, to arrive with tears or accusations. Yet, surprisingly, there were moments of quiet dignity. Moments where I realized that consequences don't always come with shouting or scandal, sometimes they arrive as calm, inevitable reckonings. Miriam came by first. She didn't yell. She didn't cry at me. She just stood at the doorway, a careful smile that barely concealed the hurt in her eyes. "Amy," she said softly, "thank you for telling me." I nodded. "You deserve to know. No one should be kept in the dark, especially when it comes to their own heart." She stepped inside, and for the first time since everything unfolded, I saw her vulnerability, not just the shock, but the strength it took to face betrayal with grace. "I confronted Ahmed," she said quietly. "It was painful. But I think I needed to hear the truth from you first. Now, at least, I can make my choices without lies clouding them." We sat together over tea, and for a brief moment, it felt like a pause between storms, a chance to breathe. I realized then that part of my role in all this wasn't punishment or revenge. It was clarity. It was truth. And sometimes, that's the most powerful action a person can take. Sanaa, on the other hand, approached the situation differently. She was furious. Entitled, confident, certain that Ahmed was hers alone. She came to our home the next day, demanding explanations, her voice sharp and full of accusation. "He lied to me," she cried. "He told me he loved me, and you," she glanced at me with a flicker of irritation, "you let him do this?" I remained calm. I didn't flinch, didn't argue. I didn't let him do anything. He made his choices. And now he must face the consequences. Her lips trembled, not from guilt, but from disbelief. You're just going to let him go? I'm going to let the truth guide him, I said firmly. He must learn that love without honesty is not love at all. Sana left shortly after, her fury trailing behind her like a storm cloud. I knew this confrontation would change her too. She would carry the lesson of honesty, even if it came harshly. And then there was Ahmed. He came home that evening, heavy with remorse and shame. I didn't need him to explain. His posture, his quiet demeanor, said everything. I've faced them both, he said softly. Miriam, she's leaving me. Sana, she's gone for now. I've made a mess of everything. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Yes. You have. But admitting it is the first step. Accepting it, facing it, that's the real courage. He looked at me with eyes full of regret. Amy, how can I ever make this right? You start by being honest from now on, I replied. You live with integrity. You don't hide behind lies anymore. That's all anyone can ask of you. There was a long silence, but it was different this time, quieter, heavier, but not crushing. It was the sound of someone beginning to understand the weight of their actions, and the slow, patient work of repairing a fractured life. By the end of that week, whispers had spread, judgments had been passed, and Ahmed's world had shifted. He had lost some things, yes, but he had also gained the clarity he desperately needed. The truth, though painful, had forced him to confront himself, and that was a consequence no lie could have taught. As I sat by the window that night, the city humming softly below, I realized that the public reckoning was not just about shame or embarrassment. It was about the restoration of honesty, the unraveling of deception, and the beginning of genuine accountability. Sometimes, the hardest consequences are the ones you see in the eyes of those you love. Weeks passed. Slowly, the sharp edges of the turmoil began to soften, not vanish, but soften enough to allow breathing. Life returned to a version of normal, though nothing would ever be exactly as it had been. Ahmed spent a lot of time alone, reflecting. He didn't speak much of Sana, and Miriam had decided to move on. I could see the weight of regret in every gesture he made, the careful way he brewed tea, the quiet sighs when he thought no one was listening. He had learned, in the hardest way possible, that choices have consequences. Our home, however, started to regain its warmth. The kitchen smelled again of cumin and onions, of tea and fresh bread. The sound of Ahmed typing late at night returned, but now there was an undercurrent of reflection in his movements, a slow, deliberate mindfulness. One afternoon, he approached me, hesitating at the doorway. Amy, he said softly, I know I hurt you. And I know I hurt Miriam. And I know I hurt myself too. I don't know how to fix everything. I smiled faintly, placing a hand on his shoulder. Ahmed, some things can't be fixed. Some things must be accepted. The important part is that you learn from them. That you don't repeat them. That you live your life with honesty and courage, even when it's difficult. He nodded slowly, tears threatening but held back. I will, Amy. I promise. And I believed him. Not because promises erase mistakes, but because remorse carried with it a weight that only true honesty could bear. Life went on. Miriam moved to a new city, finding her own happiness. Sana disappeared from our lives, but I hoped she too learned something about truth and boundaries. Ahmed remained in our home, quieter now, more thoughtful. The love between a mother and her son, though tested, had endured. It had survived not because nothing broke, but because we faced the breaking with eyes wide open. I began to notice small changes in Ahmed. The way he would pause before speaking, considering the weight of his words. The careful attention he paid to promises. The subtle kindness in gestures that used to go unnoticed. It was as if the chaos had stripped away the careless parts of him, leaving only the core of who he truly was. And me? I learned something too. That night in the car, that sudden confrontation with betrayal had been devastating. But it had also taught me the power of patience, of silence, and of allowing the truth to find its own voice. Sometimes the hardest moments become the most profound lessons. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, sipping tea, Ahmed looked at me with a quiet gratitude I had never seen before. "Ami," he said softly, "thank you, for everything. For being honest, for protecting me, for protecting Miriam. I don't know if I'd ever understand the right way to live if you hadn't shown me." I smiled, brushing back a stray lock of hair from my forehead. "My son, life will always challenge you. People will make mistakes. But your integrity, your honesty, will define you more than anything else. Never forget that." He nodded, and for the first time in weeks, there was a sense of peace between us. Not the naive, unquestioning peace of before, but a grounded, earned peace that comes only from facing pain, confronting mistakes, and emerging with understanding. That night, as I closed the door and settled into my chair by the window, I realized that life had a strange way of teaching lessons. Not through gentle nudges, but through jolts so sharp that you couldn't ignore them. And if you survived, if you listened, you could grow. And sometimes, surviving the heartbreak of those you love teaches you more about compassion, patience, and truth than any happy moment ever could. As the weeks turned into months, the echoes of that night in the car slowly faded, replaced by something quieter, steadier. Ahmed had begun to rebuild, not just his life, but his understanding of what it meant to be honest, accountable, and present. And I, in turn, learned that love sometimes means watching someone stumble, fail, and confront their own flaws, and still being there, silently guiding, gently correcting, without anger or shame. Life settled into a new rhythm. The kitchen smelled of fresh bread and spiced tea again. The small rituals, the clink of cutlery, the hum of the kettle, the quiet typing in Ahmed's room, became grounding markers of resilience. We laughed more cautiously now, aware of the fragility of trust, but laughter was all the sweeter because it was earned. I often thought about Miriam and Sanaa. Miriam had chosen her dignity and moved on, forging her own path with strength I had always admired. Sanaa, I hoped, had learned that relationships built on secrecy and manipulation could never last. As for Ahmed, he had faced the hardest truths of his life and emerged with a deeper understanding of himself, of love, and of responsibility. Sometimes I would sit by the window in the evenings, watching the streetlights flicker against the darkened houses, and reflect on that night. The shock, the betrayal, the heartbreak, it had all felt unbearable in the moment. But now, looking back, I saw it as a turning point. A moment that forced honesty into our lives, stripped away illusions, and left only what was real. I've shared this story because life has a way of surprising us. Even the people we think we know best can carry secrets. And even in those moments of disbelief, hurt, and fear, there is an opportunity to teach, to guide, to heal. Sometimes, the hardest lessons are also the most important ones. So I ask you, dear listener, when faced with betrayal, when the people you love disappoint you, what would you do? Would you confront the truth, or would you hide from it? Would you allow anger to dictate your actions, or would you act with patience, wisdom, and compassion? The choices we make in those moments define us far more than the mistakes that brought us there. And perhaps, in sharing my story, you can find a lesson in yours too. If this story touched you, if it made you reflect, consider subscribing for more tales that explore the fragile, complex, and beautiful nature of family, love, and truth. Because in the end, life is messy, people are flawed, and honesty, though painful, is the only way forward.